Story 1. Once upon a time, I had the misfortune to read a Left for Dead fanfiction where the author thought that the prostate was a little lumpy thing attached to the shaft just under the tip of the penis, and that circumcision removed it. Before you ask, I have long since lost track of this masterpiece. Story 2. I was in a tutorial on catheterizing patients. We were discussing male catheterization, and the teacher asked what we would do if we couldn't get the catheter to fit into the urethra. With less than a second's hesitation, one of the girls in the group answered, "Circumcise them." I still can't quite work out what she thinks male genitals are meant to be like. Story 3. When playing with my balls, instead of being slow or gentle, they bounce, shake, pat, or suck them like they are a bag of marbles. They have the audacity to tell me they are playing with them fine and I'm being a sissy. No, you are hitting my balls and it's straight up uncomfortable. Story 4. I had a female yoga teacher tell me, a male, to lift from my ovaries. She kept telling me I was doing a pose wrong because she could see I wasn't lifting from my ovaries. Finally, I told her I didn't have any ovaries. She said, "Of course you do." The next class, she said to me, "I looked it up in an anatomy book and you were right. Men don't have ovaries. So focus on the cavity where your ovaries would be if you had them." I told her I didn't think that was helpful advice since, as a male, my body shouldn't have a spot where they should be. It was weird. Story 5. My first girlfriend had never seen a penis. She was also a bit of a prude. When she touched mine for the first time, she told me this: "Isn't the tip supposed to be attached to your body?" To this day, after consulting with a committee of men, I haven't found an answer to what exactly she could have imagined a penis looks like. Story 6. I can't remember where I saw it, but I saw one where a woman was convinced that men completely 100% choose when they ejaculate during sex, which meant that if a man didn't last long enough in bed, it was only because he's selfish. Story 7. A friend of mine believed that if you get an erection, you have to orgasm, or else it will never go back to being limp. She had been sexually active for years at that point and didn't know they fade with arousal. Story 8. I knew a girl once who thought penises were like dog penises and had a red part that poked out of the tip. I think she grew up around a lot of farm animals or something. Edit for clarity. She thought the flaccid penis you see is actually a sheath that hides the real penis. Story 9. I'm an uncircumcised Brit living in the United States. It's very common with girls I've slept with that I'm the first uncut guy they've been with. My favorite response was one girl staring at it and saying, "I thought the foreskin was like the lid on a trash can, and it would flap open." Story 10. My friend insisted that men have 3 holes in their nether regions just like women, and when I corrected her, she was adamant about her view because, then how do gay men have sex? Needless to say, she was very shocked when I told her the truth. Story 11. When I was in middle school, this kid tried telling me that the amount you pee is correlated with the size of your penis. I tried explaining to him that wasn't true at all, but he just kept telling me that I don't understand and must have a small penis. He said, "Every time I pee, so much comes out it could fill a river. It takes me half an hour to pee because my penis is so big." Story 12. A guy on Reddit last year who said he was a medical student thought that the pubic bone was a bone that slid up when you have an erection and made the penis rigid. Story 13. My wife thinks that men over-exaggerate getting hit in the groin and that it doesn't hurt that much, especially light taps. She believes that men over-exaggerate because if we don't, then we are made fun of by other men for being a girl. Story 14. I had an experience once with a girl who moved quickly like a rabbit with short, fast movements. I couldn't finish and was too shy to tell her to lay down and let me do the work. I wish I did because she was attractive and nice. Story 15. I was involved with a girl for a while who admitted to having been masturbating from a very young age. My penis has a curve to it, and she thought that penises with curves had a correlation to masturbating a lot, so she thought that my curve meant we had that in common. I told her none of that was true to my knowledge, and some penises are straight and some have curves in different directions. Story 16. Mostly just that there are differences that cannot be changed, like even our organs are not the same size. I thought it was general knowledge, but apparently not. Story 17. I dated a woman, and we were talking about erections. She casually mentioned how men can't urinate while having an erection. I said, Yes, you can. She didn't believe me, so after a couple of minutes of arguing, I said, I have the equipment. Are you calling me a liar? It's awkward to pull off in a toilet, but sometimes you just have to do what you have to do. Her mind was blown. Story 18. Basically, any woman who has delivered a hand job or blow job to an uncircumcised man and started by pulling back the foreskin as hard as they can. Story 19. So this is a bit different from most penis-related answers here. But here is a surprising fact. Most of the women I talk to don't know that some men can't grow a beard. And I live in an Asian country where most of us can't grow beards. Story 20. One of my female friends was convinced that men cannot urinate and defecate at the same time. I tried explaining to her how this was feasible if we were seated on the toilet, but she insisted that I was wrong because you have to rest your genitals on your thighs when you sit on the toilet. Story 21. Men can eat absolutely whatever they want and not get fat. Just look at user Sapunek, he clearly eats more than I do, but I'm heavier, said by a woman who was clearly eating about 1,000 calories worth of sugary carbs during a meal. Story 22. My one friend argued that she believed she could fit her pinky into her boyfriend's urethra. Needless to say, her boyfriend was not too keen on trying. Story 23. Late to the party, but this is a guy who told me that he was completely a virgin. Now with him being 35, I assumed that he was just really awkward around women. But then later on in our interactions, he told me he had actually been intimate with women before, but because his foreskin remained attached, he believed he was still a virgin. Upon elaboration, he revealed that he thought the female genitals consumed the male foreskin. Upon further elaboration, we found that this belief stems from his excessive watching of American pornography, where most of the men have no foreskin. Chris was a special guy. Story 24. I had a girlfriend who insisted I am an inch bigger than I know I am, and who thought it was debatable whether or not I am circumcised. At one point, she proposed that I could be half circumcised. Story 25. This one girl decided to squeeze my penis like she was trying to get the last drop of toothpaste out of the tube. Apparently, she thought that the harder you squeeze a penis, the better it feels, and she was confused when I didn't like it. I immediately lost my erection. Story 26. Pretty much every woman I have spent more than a few days with did not know that our testicles move up and down on their own without us doing anything. It is fun showing them. Story 27. I'm a woman and possibly a bit guilty. You know the scene in Austin Powers Goldmember where Dr. Evil gets hit in the balls with the globe and then he counts to 3 to make sure they're all there? This made me so confused for a long time, thinking that there are 3 balls, not 2. Story 28. I am a woman, but a dear friend of mine, who is male in his late 20s with a college education, was convinced that sperm is only produced by one testicle, specifically the right testicle. This came out when I said that one of my exes only had one testicle, and he replied, "Which one? I hope they left him the right one so he can still have kids." Story 29. I managed to overhear a straight guy ask a gay guy if he could get a prostate massage. He'd heard it was awesome and gave better orgasms, and the gay bar is a pretty low-key hookup zone, so it's not strange he came in expecting something like that discreetly. He was pretty into it until the gay guy went, "Do you have lubricant? Why do you need lubricant?" "Because your prostate is inside your rear." What? I was quite drunk after about 4 shots of vodka and my second rum and coke, so it started to blur out at this point. The rest of what I heard made it sound like he thought the prostate could be given an external massage like a back massage. I lost track because it was loud, and I was trying not to drown myself in my drink laughing. Oh, and I know he's straight because he said he asked his wife for one, and she said no. He said he came to the gay bar because, you know about that kind of stuff, right? The Bible Belt, man. Story 30. My ex-girlfriend, when she saw my penis for the first time, we were both virgins and pretty young, was surprised that the testicles were in the same sack. She thought that the testicles each had their own sack dangling side by side. Story 31. I work in a medical office and had to explain to another woman, older than myself, not an hour ago, that not all penises look the same. Also vaginas. I think she is Mormon. Story 32. When a very politically aligned woman claimed you urinate from the testicles and that women have internal bladders and are therefore superior, I always thought urine is stored in the balls was a joke. Maybe she was being sarcastic, and if so, she needs to be hired for Saturday Night Live for perfect deadpan delivery. Story 33. On Facebook, people were talking about manspreading, and some woman was like, I actually did the math, and the maximum angle you need to spread your legs to be comfortable is 20 degrees. Like, come on, lady, you have no idea what it's like to have balls. Story 34. My pediatrician said I had a big veiny clump on my left testicle. She said it was a part of puberty. 2 years later, I went to see a male doctor. He took a quick look, sent me to a specialist, and I had to have surgery. If it had been caught earlier, it would have been a bit of medication and maybe an injection. Story 35. A friend of mine, when we were about 13, thought that, just as in women with the hymen, losing your virginity meant some sort of physical change in the penis. He thought something happened to it the first time you put it in, like a bone expanded near the tip. He had the audacity to mock me when I corrected him. Story 36. The nurse who was handling our sex education said 2 things I know with certainty are not true. 1. That normal condoms will fit any size. She pulled the condom up over her arm and said, if he tells you he's too big, he's lying. If you're even just a bit outside the average in either direction, condoms will not fit you correctly and could slip off or rip. Bigger individuals, for example, talk about the red ring of discomfort, which comes from the ring at the base of the penis after wearing normal condoms and often results in not being able to maintain erections. You know what erections don't have that arms do have? Bones. Also, try wearing that condom on your arm for more than a minute. It's gonna hurt. Blue balls isn't real. You have no idea how painful that is. I played soccer for years and took full force kicks, and they hurt less than that does and nowhere near as long. Blue balls seems to be kind of unpredictable, but it has happened to me a few times as a result of not getting to finish, and it was bad. Also related to the first point, I've had condoms cut off a few of my erections, and I've found out that women respond really badly to this. To the degree that I've been screamed at for not being able to maintain an erection. For your information, screaming at someone for going limp isn't going to bring the erection back. Maybe consider not doing that. Story 37. Oh my feminist teacher, men can't be raped. You can't just fall on a penis. A man can't get an erection if he isn't into the woman. Teaches us about mansplaining while womansplaining. Story 38. Minor compared to a lot posted here so far, but I swear there are people in the sex or relationship subreddits arguing that blue balls do not exist on a daily basis. Look, ladies, I get that your 15-year-old boyfriend probably tried to use them to get into your pants, but as someone who likes being teased by women, I can assure you they're real and they can really hurt. Story 39. Asked my ex for a hand job once. She applies some lubricant. I ask for more and she goes, if I use too much, there won't be enough friction. And everything in me wanted to go, hey, I know how my body works. I have experience. More lubricant, please. But instead just accepted it until she goes, can I just put it in now? That was the day I learned she wasn't good at accepting feedback or doing stuff she didn't directly benefit from. Story 40. After reading these comments, I'm really glad that I'm gay. I'm not going to run into anyone who is inexperienced with the male anatomy and will unintentionally hurt me. Story 41. Anybody remember the Sunday night sex show? I used to listen to it on the radio as a teenager, but at some point it got televised. Anyways, there was an episode where a woman called in because she was scared of sex, thinking the lucky fellow might urinate inside her. The host told her not to worry because apparently, we dudes can't pee while we have an erection. I think she confused the process where we can't urinate while close to ejaculation. She got several calls clarifying, and even I almost called to tell her, not really, we just have to arc it a bit. Story 42. I have to embarrassingly admit I had no idea about the variation in ball sizes. It makes sense, given the variety, but I was just shocked that one person had large, low-hanging balls while another had small, tightly held ones. Some were larger and tighter, others were asymmetrical. There are so many options. Story 43. My sister-in-law was rubbing my friend's deal for a couple of minutes when she told him, I've already made you come like 100 times. She was referring to his pre-cum. Story 44. I had an ex who I never had sex with talk about how she had fantasies of me just finishing 8 to 10 times inside her. When I told her that it was 2 to 3 times max, she insisted I could do way more. She wasn't even aware of where her clitoris was. Be wary of homeschooled women. Story 45. Once had to help my then friend, now fiancé, treat some trauma to his foreskin because a woman he was about to hook up with took his foreskin being tight and started being a little rougher with her hand. He said, "Careful, it's tight." She said, "Ugh, I've been with uncircumcised guys before," and promptly violently shoved his foreskin back over the head of his penis farther back than it had ever gone before. We still run into her at the local bar, and he gets into a permanent cringe whenever she's within a 3-foot radius.